Hey everyone, Kevin P. McAuliffe here, and I am back again with another Creative Cow tutorial. And in our ongoing look at learning Avid's Media Composer and Symphony, I thought in this lesson what we would do is we'd head on back and take a look at another real-world example of an effect that you can create right from within your Media Composer or Symphony timeline and not have to get out to a compositing application. And the effect I'm talking about is one that I always thought was cool, even though I never watched the show. I know it very well. And it's the extra bumper for each commercial break to the show 24. You know, where that digital clock counts down and the different video shots appear on the screen. I always thought it was a very cool effect, and one, like I said, that most people think that you'd have to do in a compositing application. But believe it or not, it's something that you can do without having to leave the comfort of your Media Composer or Symphony timeline. Now, before we go on, I do want to give a shout out to the whole team at Maijo Interactive who watched my Learn Media Composer tutorial series. So I want to give a shout out to Kate, Nicole, Ray, Max, and Olivia. Thanks for watching, and keep watching, and I'll take whatever feedback you have since you work right down the hall from me. Okay, we'll give a short introduction here. Let's just get into Symphony, and let's get started. Okay, so let's Alt-Tab into Avid's Symphony, obviously Command and Tab for all my Mac friends out there. And the first thing I need to do is I need to open my graphics bin because we're going to create our 24 digital clock countdown first. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to navigate up to Clip. I'm going to come down to New Title. And we're just going to open the standard title tool. Now you'll remember that if you want to get into the marquee title tool, and the standard title tool is always the one that's opening, you can always head on over to settings, come all the way down to the marquee title tool setting, simply double click on it. I just got to move the title tool out of the way here, and this is where you can choose whether you want to open the marquee title tool, the standard title tool, or you can be prompted as to which one you want to open. But since I spend most of my time just in the standard title tool, that is the one that we're going to use. Okay. Now the first thing I need to do is to punch in our time, and I'm just going to come up with a random time here. Let's do 44, 26. Sure, why not? I need to put the colon in between, and the font I'm going to use, Digital Dream. And again, this is a free font. You can just go to Google and punch in Digital Dream and you can find this font. It's a great sort of digital clock type of font. Now let's just center this up. Now this isn't actually the text that I'm going to use. I'm actually going to redo this text. I just want it for positioning because I'm going to do each one of these numbers separately and put them one on top of these ones that are here just to line them up. That way I have each one of them separate so that when I change them, it's going to be easy to get in and change and not have each one of these numbers moving all over the place, which is not what I want to have happen. Now I just need to bump the size up here. Let's put this at, I don't know, let's say 96 size. That's might be a little bit too big, but I think we'll be okay for the purposes of the tutorial. So I'm just going to stretch this out, and I need to adjust our space in here in between because we got a little bit too much space between the numbers and the colon there. So I'm going to hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, and just use the left and right arrow keys to adjust the kerning here in between each one of the... It's not between each one, it's really in between the numbers and that colon. Now if you want it to get in, I'm not big on the circles. If I wanted to get in and adjust it to make it look more like the actual font or the actual numbers, I could simply just get in and start drawing squares like such. And we could put those in their place, but I'm going to stick just with the circles for now, just for the purposes of time. Okay, so now that I have that, I'm sort of happy with the way that that's going to go. I'm going to copy and paste this. And now we're going to get in and put in our individual numbers. Now, really the only thing that we need to adjust here, and what I should do now that I have that centered up, is I'm just going to left justify this. And we're going to do 44 first, just because 44 and the colon are actually not going to change. It's actually 44 and all the way up to the 2 that's not going to change. So let's just remove that 6. And I'm just going to repo this here. We're just going to right justify it here. I'm just going to repo this and put it right over top of what was there previously. Just kind of like that. That's pretty darn close. Okay, very nice. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to delete the numbers that are underneath it, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy and paste it, and we're just going to slide it over. We need to left justify it here. I'm just going to slide it right over here and just position it roughly where we're going to want the next number to go, which is right about there. And what we now have is the number perfectly centered. And what I have is I have these 3 numbers here that are never going to change, and I have the 4 here that's going to count down, and I'm going to make sure here that I have it right justified. And let's just move it over here. Let's just undo what I just did. We'll just select everything. It's actually over here. Just slide this back over, because when it counts, I don't want it to actually move in the frame. And by right just define it like that. Every time it changes, it's going to stay lined up right on this right edge, which is exactly what I want. Okay, I'm going to save this first one out here. I'm just going to say save title. We'll just call this time 1. And we'll stick it into the graphics bin here. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to close the title tool for a second. We're just going to come down here about there. I'm just going to mark that as an endpoint. I'm just going to go down 1 second here. And I'm going to drop this in 4 times. We're just going to go paste, 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 paste. It's actually overwrite, 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 and overwrite. So let's get in and let's adjust these so that we actually have our clock countdown. Now you're going to remember I did this in a previous tutorial, which I'm sure that everyone's watched, so it should be fairly easy for everyone to get in and duplicate what I'm doing. And this is going to be actually number 3, just like such. You see, because I had everything set up properly, I just punch in the number 3, and this one is all set to go. So we'll just give it a second here. Now sometimes if you click on the little X and it doesn't save, you might just have to come in. Let's just see here, it might be hiding behind. Oh, look at that. It says it's currently being saved. Do I really want to close the title tool? Sure, even though it didn't actually save. So let's try that again here. Again, very simple. Just come in, punch in the number 3. Let's try saving this out again. Let's see if you'll save this time. There we go, perfect. Just going to right click, edit title. You can see sometimes the title tool is a little bit fussy, but overall, fairly rock solid. I say that as it does it again here. Let's try this here. Right click, edit title. I'm just going to punch in the number 2 here. I'm going to save this. It could just be because I'm working a little bit too fast. Sometimes that happens if I'm working a little bit too fast. The title tool is being opened and closed really quick. Punch in number 1 there. Just give it a second here. Close this up. We'll say save. There we go. See, I think I was working a little bit too fast. Okay, so there we go. So we got 4, 3, 2, 1. Very cool. Now the only thing is that with the actual countdown, it's very stylized. It actually has a glow effect put around it. Now in this case I'm going to use a third-party effect. What you could also do if you wanted to is put a drop shadow around this, sort of extend it out. But like I said, for all the Symfony users out there, you have access to Bohr's Continuum Complete, so I highly suggest using it, in situations like this. And when you see how simple it is, it's really a drag and drop, and I'm just going to adjust the color, and you're going to see how quick and simple it is to get the look of the 24 countdown clock. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come back to my bins. I'm going to hit Control and 8 on Windows, Command and 8 on the Mac, and I'm going to come into the BCC section of effects, and I'm going to come to Film Style, and it's Film Glow that I want right here. I'm going to take it, I'm going to drag it and drop it right down onto the shot, and as soon as I do, everything disappears. So let's step into the effect. I'm going to step into effects mode by pressing Shift and Y on the keyboard. Now, I know you all know the words, so sing along. My shortcut is Shift and Y on the keyboard. If you don't have effects mode mapped, you can always find it right up here in the Composer window, right down here at the top of your timeline. So I'm just going to step into effects mode. 2 things I have to adjust here. The first thing is I need to tell the effect that I'm applying this to a title or a matte, which I do simply right here, apply to title / matte or -matte. Once I apply it, there we go. There's the glow just around the text, but of course not the color I want. Why? Because the color right now is set to white, and I actually want the color just to be orange. I'm going to say OK, and there's that countdown from 24, pretty much looking exactly the way that it should. Now what's cool is the fact that I've set this up with obviously the apply to title matte and the correct color. So now all I have to do is simply take the effect and drag it and drop it onto the next number, and boom, updated right away. Boom, updated right away. Boom, updated right away. Very cool. So if I come back here now, I'll just give this a quick render. I'll say clip, render in out. Just render that here. See, it's going to render very quick. It's almost real time here, just a little bit longer than real time. I'm just going to come back to the beginning here. Here's our countdown. I can almost hear that sound in my head that happens as the countdown happens, but there we go. Very cool. Okay, so what I want to do now is I just want to take a look at how this setup is going to look over top of video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 video tracks in by simply hitting Control and Y on Windows, Command and Y on the Mac. What I'm going to do then is with this entire selection of clips marked, I'm going to hit Alt and C on Windows, Option and C on the Mac to copy that into the clipboard, into the preview window here. And all I'm going to do is drop it into the topmost layer by hitting B on the keyboard. Now I turned on that video layer 1, so that way when I drop the clip in here to video layer 3, it's actually just going to lay nothing onto that layer, so I don't have all of these in here doubled up. Very cool. Another cool little shortcut there for you. Okay. Now the next thing I need is a clip of video. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to Obviously don't have that fancy, Kiefer Sutherland 24 footage. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use some time-lapse footage here, and I'll just grab a clip at random here. Sure, why not this one? And I'm just going to drop it into video layer 1. And the reason I dropped it into video layer 1 is you'll see that I have that the number countdown over top of the footage, but that's not how it looks on the show. It's actually inside of a box. Now I could have done that inside of the title tool as a layer merged with the actual number countdown. The only problem with that is that once I add the film glow, everything's going to sort of fall off the rails because the glow will be added to everything, including the black that's on the screen. So what I like to do is just simply do it as its own separate layer. I'm just going to say new title. Give it a second here. All I'm going to do is turn the video off here. So this background's not going to be transparent anymore. It's going to be black. We're just going to save this out. We'll call it simply enough black. And I'm going to drop it in here onto video layer 2. Just like such. Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually crop this so that our text is going to sit on top of this little black cutout over top of the footage. So very easy. Effects mode again, Shift and Y on the keyboard. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to promote the effect to 3D right down here. I could use the crop tools in here, but I actually like the 3D title, or I like the 3D effects or the 3D warps crop tool because it's just a lot easier to use. And I'm just going to position this probably about there, I think. And then right about here, I think. That's not looking too shabby. Okay, what I'm going to do is just step out of effects mode by hitting Y on the keyboard on both Mac and Windows. I'm going to mark this entire clip here, but I'm not going to render this layer. I'm just going to render the topmost layer. I don't need to render the title that's underneath because whatever I render on the top will automatically, almost non-destructively mix down and render everything that's below it. So all I'm going to do is simply say render in out. I'm going to say go. And what I have now is I now have my countdown inside of my little black rectangle here. Very cool. Okay, so let's set up our 24 scenario. Now, normally what happens on the show is you're going to have video running that's full screen, and then what's going to happen is once the clock starts, that same video that was playing is then going to appear in the upper left-hand corner, and what's going to happen is as each second ticks on, we're going to get a new frame of video in each one of the sort of quadrants, I guess is the best way to put it. So let's set that up. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to find a long time-lapse shot here. And what I'm going to do here is when I normally sort by hitting Control and E on Windows, Command and E on the Mac, it's going to sort from the shortest to the longest. But if I want to reverse that, all I have to do is simply hit Control, Alt and E, Command, Option and E for all my Mac friends out there. And now we can find the longer shots here. Very cool. Now obviously for the purposes of what we're doing, we don't have the most exciting footage, not very 24-ish, but you'll get the idea of how this is going to work. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to create a new sequence. And let's just put this at about, I don't know, let's say 10 seconds. And I'll just come back a frame here, mark that as an out point, perfect. And I'm going to hit B on the keyboard on both Mac and Windows. And I'll just drop this into the graphics bin because what I should do here is actually open the sequences bin. And once the sequences bin is open here, I'm just going to minimize time lapse here. We'll just take our two sequences right here, drag them in here. Now sequence 2, I'm going to call, now this is actually sequence 3. So what I'm going to do is call this one main sequence. And we're going to call this one title setup. And what we're going to do now is we're going to drop in our countdown. Now how we're going to do this is very easy. What I'm going to do is take the title setup, I'm going to drag it up here into the preview window. I'm going to come down here to toggle source record in timeline. What this is basically going to do is down here where my timeline is, if I toggle this, it's actually going to show me this clip over here. A great way to edit sequences into sequences. Now what I'm going to do here is I don't need the bottom layer of video, so I'm just going to select the top two channels, and we're going to come all the way down to the end because conceivably this would be where our show would go right out to the commercial break. So I'm going to add 2 layers of video by hitting Control and Y, or Command and Y for all my Mac friends out there. I'm just going to hit it twice here, and we're going to deselect video 1. I've got the entire clip here marked, so I'm just going to mark an out point right there. I'm going to hit B on the keyboard on both Mac and Windows, and there's our countdown. Now as soon as we get to that point right there, what's going to happen is this video is going to shrink into the upper left-hand corner. Now the only thing is I'm going to need some more video elements to put in here, so I'm just going to create 3 new video tracks by hitting Control and Y 3 times. And let's just take this element here, these 2 video layers actually, we're just going to drag them up. I'm going to hold Control and Windows Command on the Mac so that it snaps right to where I want it to. Very nice. And like I said, at this point here, we need to add an edit. So I'm just going to deselect all the other video layers except video layer 1. What I'm going to do now is simply hit F6 on the keyboard on both Mac and Windows, which is my shortcut for Add Edit. You can actually also find Add Edit right here at the top of your timeline. Now once we've added an edit in, I'm ready to come in and I'm ready to shrink down this element. So I'm going to hit Control and 8 on Windows, Command and 8 on the Mac. We're simply going to come down to the blend section. I'm going to take the 3D warp tool. We're going to drag it and drop it right over here onto the shot. And I'm going to step into effects mode again. Shift and Y is my shortcut. And let's just take this, and I think we're going to shrink it down to, let's try 25%. That's way too small. Let's try 33%. Even that's probably too small. Let's just position this roughly where it's going to go. What I'm going to do is just turn all this on for a second, because it's easy for me to figure out how big I need to make this by looking at it. Maybe we need to actually make it about 50%. Let's just repo this just so it's sitting roughly where we want it. And I think that's actually not too bad. Now, believe it or not, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this element as the reference for the other ones. Now, you can really do this in whatever order you want to. I'm just going to go upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right. So all I'm going to do again is with this layer selected, I'm going to hit T on the keyboard on both Mac and Windows. Again, Alt and C to copy it up here into the preview window. I'm just going to edit this in to video layer 2, video layer 3, and video layer 4. Now the only thing that's important to keep in mind here is that as we're going, we need to make sure that each one of the appropriate layers starts when it gets to the proper time. So all we're going to do is just remove the parts of the track that we don't need. Okay. Now like I said, there's video 1 that happens when our first time countdown comes on. And at this point, the next one's going to come on. So I'm just going to hold Shift on the keyboard. We're just going to drag this over. Now, of course, let's see here. Yep. It wants to add a keyframe in, which we don't want to do here. So let's come back onto this layer. Now, what actually happened here, what I should do for a second here, because this is actually very important, is that keyframes were added in when I positioned this originally. So what we want to make sure of is that we just get rid of these keyframes, because if we don't and we actually remove, like you just saw, what I did is I removed the front parts of all these clips, we can't get in and adjust those keyframes. So let's just get rid of them just like such. And again, I'm just going to quickly remove these elements here. Very quick. Not too bad considering I have a microphone sticking right in my face here. There we go. Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do again, Shift and Y, step into this shot here. I'm just going to drag it over. Now you'll see again, of course, that a keyframe is added. I'm just going to delete that pesky keyframe because I don't need it here. This one is going to, of course, come down right here. Now what I'm doing is I'm actually using the edge of the frame. You can actually see it right here as the reference point as to where I'm positioning each one of these. Of course, again, I'm just going to delete that keyframe. Last one. What we need to do is just see everything here. Very cool. I'm just going to come down here like such. And we're going to come over like such. Now, of course, we have one thing filling the entire frame. Now, of course, what I didn't do here was I didn't delete this last keyframe. There we go. Okay. Now, of course, what I want to do is I want to get in and put different shots in here. No problem. What I'm going to do is just come back to my time-lapse footage here. And, of course, I'm using the longest shots. Let's just see what other long shots we have. Sure, why not this one? All I'm going to do now is I can do one of two things. With video 2 selected, I can come down and I can actually step into this clip, simply select the entire length and hit B on the keyboard on both Mac and Windows to edit that shot in. And then what I can do is come back and step out. Or what I can do is simply just come over to the effect and double click on it. By doing that, it's going to expand the layer out. Now let's just take our next shot here. Sure, why not this one? Just mark an endpoint right there. Now all I have to do is in my timeline, just simply patch into that inside sort of layer 2. You can see we've got layer 1, layer 2. Mark that clip, drop it in, there we go. And again, to collapse this again, simply double click on it. I'm just going to double click again. Let's grab this one here. It doesn't even really matter. That one's a little bit dark. Let's see what else we got here. Maybe even that. Sure, why not? Okay, again, patch in. Video 2 inside of our element. And guess what we have now? Just going to come back. We're just going to render all this out. And of course, what's also important to keep in mind here, just render this, clip render in out. Now, of course, you could also map that render in out. Actually, when I'm working at MyJo, I actually have render in out mapped onto my composer right here. So you'll occasionally see me coming over here to find it, and I don't find it because I don't have it mapped here at home. But what I actually have now is I have the countdown. But what I want to do before I actually play the countdown back is I want to add a little bit of black at the end here because I already have it. So I'm just going to get 10 frames of black just so that when I play this back for a client, it's actually going to go to black. Normally what I'll always have in a project is when I'm creating a title, I'll create a black frame. This way I have filler at the end that I can easily drop in, so when you're playing something and it gets to the end, it doesn't just sort of pause on that last frame. It'll always go to black, which is the way a client would normally see it, especially on the air. So what I'm going to do is just drop that in. I'm going to come back here. Now this is a bit long, so we'll just cut some of this off here. And what I'm going to do is just select the topmost video layer. I'm simply going to hit play. And what we're going to have now is a 24 style countdown. Just like that. Very, very cool. And as you can see, you don't need to go to a compositing application to create this. It can all be done with the standard title tool and the awesome 3D warp effect. So if you have any questions, you have any comments, or you have any tutorial requests, you can send them to kevinpmcauliffe@gmail.com. This has been Kevin P. McAuliffe. Thanks a lot for watching.